What sort of things were you doing when you were in middle school and high school? I know I wasn't advocating for an entire community of people. In today's episode of the I Can't See You podcast, I've got a very special guest who has been doing just that from a very young age.
From Studio C, welcome to the I Can't See You podcast with David. He can't see, but he's got a lot to say and a face for radio.
Hello there, and welcome to episode 105 of the I Can't See You podcast. My name is David, at David Benj on all the socials. I really appreciate you joining me for today's episode, and I've got a good one lined up, and I also would like to start off by wishing you a Merry Christmas. As this episode drops on Christmas Eve, I hope you have a very happy holiday and a Happy New Year, but I'll wish you that next week when the next episode drops on New Year's Eve. One thing Liz and I were talking about this week, we've got lights up in the house. And, because I'm Jewish, we never did any kind of lights in our house when I was growing up. We did some Hanukkah decorations when I was little, but it's just not the same. And I was saying to Liz yesterday as we were in the kitchen, because we have them on the inside of our windows in the kitchen, not really visible from the street, but obviously visible to us inside the house. And it's nice at night when the lights are off. As I'm going up to bed and I'm shutting all the other lights off, I leave those on. And it just, it lights up the way and it looks so nice. And, we've only got another week or so, week and a half of having those lights up. So kind of sad. They've been up since Thanksgiving, I think we put them up. And when I say we, of course, I always mean Liz, because Liz does most of the stuff around here. But I do have a nice episode lined up today, and I will get to the interview with Simon in just a couple of minutes, and I'll tell you about him in a couple of minutes. But before we get to that, a couple of updates. A very quick update on fantasy football. I lost this week. There was no more magic in my 5-win or 6-win team, whatever it is. So I can't even be the best of the worst. So just a couple more games to go where it doesn't matter. I'm not playing anyone as far as I can tell. But it was fun, and it just was such an enjoyable season. And we found out we'll be getting some T-shirts from Verizon Media for partaking in the case study that Keziah had set up with our commissioner, Brian. And so that's very cool. I mean, they just kept giving us stuff. It's just kind of unreal how much they gave us between money and now some swag. Another update, we've actually changed names on the dog. And it's kind of funny because it just got to us a few times when we told people what the name of the dog was going to be. Oh, like the pork. And, and I'm guessing that's why they named the character in Mulan Mushu. But obviously we weren't naming him after food, although we all like to eat. So I guess that wouldn't be far off. But I mean, if we were going to name him a food, it wouldn't have been that. And believe me, we came up with some food names as I've mentioned here. So we have fallen back to Ziggy, which was one that I came up with very early on, that Jane wasn't 100% with, but now has gotten in back of that one, and so Ziggy is going to be the dog's name, and I'm happy with that because, as I've said before, the kids we had a dog when the kids were growing up, a golden retriever then as well, and his name was Zamboni, and we called him Zamboni when he did stuff wrong and when we tried to get his attention, but for the most part, we called him Zam or Zammy, so this just kind of fit better and felt better along those same lines. So that's the name, Ziggy. And we still are going to get him somewhere either January 9th or 10th. So we're very excited. We've gotten some more videos and pictures and of all the puppies because we don't know which one of them is going to be Ziggy. So, of course, I will certainly keep you updated with that. And that will do it for the updates for this episode. So let's move on to the interview. My guest today is someone who I've known for a little bit more than 5 years. And that's not very long in his lifetime because he's only 18 years old and he sits on the Keystone chapter of the National Federation of the Blind of Pennsylvania board, like I do. And he is a high school senior, but when you hear him speak, you will not believe it because his wisdom and the words that come out of his mouth are just unbelievable. And they have so much insight to just about anything and everything that he talks about. He is my friend, Simon Bonenfant. Simon, I really appreciate you coming on to the podcast today.
Oh, thank you very much, David. It's great to be here and great to talk to your listeners.
Yeah, and I do appreciate it. And we have known each other for 5 years, which in my lifetime really isn't that isn't that long. But your lifetime, it's a little bit different. Why don't you tell us just a little about yourself?
All right, cool. Definitely. Yeah, we've been very active in the NFB. Me and you have done a lot of work with the Keystone chapter for a long while. And you're right. 5 years of my life has been a bit different than what it'd be for you. So I am 18 years old, and I'm a senior in high school. I go to Archbishop Carroll High School, and I have been blind since birth. So I have light perception, so I can see light, but I could see a lot less than you can. But all my things that I do are non-visual, and I've been in with the NFB since 2012. So I've been for many years, and I do work with the Keystone chapter. And obviously you've talked about the Keystone chapter in your podcast and the Believe You Can. And for those who were at Believe You Can, I was involved with that. I sang and played the piano, and I helped because I'm on the board. So I helped to find some people for that. And it was just a really nice event that we did. But yeah, that's kind of been my life.
Okay, let's touch on school. So when you say you go to Archbishop Ryan, it's regular class like I did. It's a regular classroom setting. You're not in. It's not like at St. Lucy's where it's a room full of other blind folks. It's a regular class. Yeah. Well,
right,
I mean
yes.
now I know it's it's your kitchen table or wherever
right, yes, yes.
wherever you're doing it.
Yes. Yeah. Archbishop Carroll is a regular high school. It's a Catholic high school out in Radnor, Pennsylvania. And for those who don't know the context of this, me and David live pretty close to each other in the Philadelphia area, suburbs kind of area. So yeah, I should have mentioned that, but you brought it up that when I was in grade school, I went to St. Lucy's School, which the listeners have heard about from what you've talked about, that the NFB
right.
kind of does some work with them. And that's a blind school. But yeah, my high school experience has been a traditional regular high school, and it's been really good there. The people really kind of received me well. And I actually did a presentation recently to a journalism class there. One of my teachers, the English teacher there, runs a journalism class, and she runs a school newspaper. And she contacted me, and she wanted me to do a presentation for the students. And I think it was pretty cool for me and for them because these are students there who, see me, and a lot of them I'm friendly with. But in terms of, my philosophy in my life, they don't know these kind of things. So,
right.
So I've gotten a lot of questions over the years from them, kind of sporadically about, my tools and my techniques and everything. And we can get to that later, but it was neat. So I did a presentation, and they had a lot of questions for me. So, yeah.
Okay. So, and I know, thinking back to a conversation I had with your mom, I guess it was the first time I had gone to Washington seminar. So almost 2 years ago now. And she was telling me about, some math that you were, I guess it was geometry that you were having trouble because you needed, obviously we need some sort of tactile thing to do a lot of things. And so how did that work out? Were you able to get the materials to do that, or how did that all shake down?
Yes. Yes. I have. Geometry. That was a very interesting class. It wasn't the easiest. I'm not going to sit here and say it was. It was pretty difficult, but yes, I have completed actually all my math requirements for the high school. So that's been good. But yeah, that was good. It worked out. And I have a very good team of people there at the school that work with me.
Okay.
And I'm a very hard worker. I've always been really hard worker and just driven. And I think just to touch on a theme that you talk about a lot, David, on here is, as blind people, we have to work harder to sometimes just get the minimum that other people are doing, right?
Right.
So I find that a lot. And I think also what I found, though, is that the hard work pays off, and that one thing is people take notice of it. And two is that I found that I work harder, and towards the end of it, I actually get a lot farther than, the sighted people that would be just doing the minimum. It takes me longer, but I get farther along in it. I learn more. So
Right.
yeah, it's kind of something that as disabled people, we have to kind of just work hard just to succeed,
Right.
So.
Right. And I think that, and I've talked to, to a few folks, Lisa and a couple other folks within the chapter and outside of the chapter, and, to me, that is one of the most frustrating things, is not having to work harder, but how long it takes sometimes to do what to a sighted person is a very simple task. And it just bothers me to no end, because I have always been built, okay, I want to do this and I want to get it done. And, if I could see, like it was pointed out with when I was doing my mobility instruction, if you had to go to a conference and go down to a table and sign in and get a badge. Well, if you could see, you would look, you'd see the table, you'd walk down, you'd find the table that maybe was that either had your letters, if it was a huge, conference, or maybe it's just one table with a couple people sitting behind it. If it's small, and you have to give your name, and then you have to, oh, here, write your name on the badge. Hi, I'm David. Well, if I wrote it, people probably wouldn't understand what it said. So, you always have to have, as independent as we'd like to be, there are times that, excuse me, we just need to have, we need to have that assistance, and the time that it takes, to find the table where you have to sign in and then do all that. It's just, that's, I think, the most frustrating part of our issue of not seeing, of being blind, is for me at least. And, I don't mind doing hard work, but it's, when it takes so long to get something done, it just kills me.
Right. And I think it's kind of interesting, your perspective, because you're coming from a perspective of at one time in your life having a lot more vision than you do now,
right,
to what it is like for you. And kind of, do you find yourself looking back to thinking, 30 years ago, you could do it in maybe 2 minutes, and now you're doing it in 5 minutes or 10 minutes?
Right.
Or you kind of find yourself doing that?
Yeah. Even, because I've been visually impaired my entire life, my parents stressed at an early age, you can do everything that anybody else can do. And down to the fact that I used to have a catch with a baseball with my dad. And, we had to line up between the crimson maple behind him so I could see the ball coming. I got one of these bright orange baseballs. And, we'd have a catch with that. And, it hit me a lot because I didn't see it or whatever. But I always tried that. And I always thought, man, it sucks not being able to see. But, man, I would kill to have that sight now. You know what I mean? And that's, at the best, or I guess at the best, it was, 2070 or 2060, something in that ballpark, and now it's beyond legally blind. So, and look, that's the other thing. I knew that it was never going to get fixed, because I was told that early on. I was always told we're just trying to maintain it, and I'm 56, so we maintained pretty good up until around 10 or 15 years ago. And but yes, it's definitely different. And talking about that, I've noticed folks like yourself who are blind from birth, or visually impaired, seriously visually impaired from birth, I think are much better off, and I think are much smarter again. And I think it has to do with all the extra effort that you have to put in, time and time again. You amaze me with some of the stuff, and I'll never forget sitting with Pat and Buck at a Meet the Blind month a couple of years ago. And and Matt was there as well. and we were talking about sports, and Pat started talking. Pat is Buck's better half. Pat starts talking about sport. I'm like, holy cow, how do you know all that? And she just jumped right in, and I couldn't believe, how well versed she was in multiple sports, because we were jumping from college football to hockey to to other things. And I just thought I was just amazed at that, because, if you ask Liz anything, if you tell her, what do you call it in football when the guy takes the ball over the goal line, she'll know it's a touchdown, but it doesn't go much further than that. So it's definitely a difference that, back obviously when you're living it, you don't know how good you have it until, the old saying, you don't know how good you have it until it's gone. That definitely plays true. And it's a good thing. I'm so glad that Warren had gotten me into the NFB, called me, said, "Hey, I'm doing this thing. Why don't you come check it out?" And I did. And, I've been there, it's going on 6 years now. So I'm glad I jumped in there. And so you've been doing that. Let's touch on the NFB for a bit. You've been doing that for 8 or so years, almost 9 years. You have a funny story. I mentioned Washington Seminar a while ago. Why don't you tell that? I just, every time I think of politics, I always think of this story. Why don't you tell the John Boehner story?
Oh, John Boehner. Yeah, that was pretty cool. And so about 6 or 7 years ago, back when John Boehner was still Speaker of the House, I do this Washington Seminar event that we all do. And I was eating at a local Italian restaurant in DC. It's pretty upscale. And I was in there talking to the waiter about the NFB, because I usually like to tell people that we're doing this and everything. And I was talking to him, and he said, "Oh, there's a politician upstairs in the private area of the restaurant." And I'm like, "Oh, who?" And they said, "John Boehner." He's like, "You want to meet him?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So I go up to this place. He takes me up there, and I meet John Boehner, and I get talking to him. And I was pretty young at the time. I was about maybe like 11, about that. So we get talking, and I tell him about the advocacy. And then the funny thing is, I tell this story to a lot of people each year when I go. And back in 2020, just this past February, we went before the COVID hit. I go to that restaurant again, and I go up to the door, and who's holding the door? John Boehner is holding the door for me when I walk in. So it was pretty neat. It was like, and the funny thing was, he actually did remember me. So
that is funny. Cool. Yeah, that is such a great story. I love that.
Yeah, and it's really cool. The Washington Seminar, and it's kind of a way to get our voices heard out there, and get the message across. And
right, and that's what I was going to point out, that I keep mentioning Washington Seminar. I guess in case folks don't know, it's every late January, early February of every year. The NFB gets together, and we go down, and we basically lobby Congress. If you're from Pennsylvania, you meet with representatives from, and to this point, and I've only been there a couple of years, I've never actually sat in with a representative or a senator. The closest I came to actually meeting a congressperson was that. Do you remember the guy I thought he was the pizza delivery guy, the guy from Tennessee, he's from the 2nd Congressional District, and he was telling us how to get from where we were going from one of the office buildings to the other, and he helped us. When you, Brian, and I were getting on the elevator, he said, "Yeah, just go up one level," and blah, 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 blah. That was the closest I came to, meeting. He's a freshman. I guess we should look to see if he won this past year.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
You remember that? We were in that long hallway, and then we got to that. So I forget his name, but he was from Tennessee's 2nd Congressional District. So yeah, that's and I think that's. When folks see us down there, or see us anywhere, there's always some folks that want to help, and there's always some folks that think that it's amazing that we got that far, so they're going to take us the rest of the way. Yeah, I've had it happen on multiple occasions when I've gone into Philadelphia, and I'm literally a block from where I need to be, and I've made it from my house to the train, through the train station, up to the top of the, out onto the sidewalk, and now I'm a block away, and somebody thinks they need to get me over the finish line, and I I know where I'm going. I just need to know if the light's green or red, and they want to grab you and drag you in, and one of the things that that we also both do is the Philly Meetup for the Blind with Trish and Catherine, and helping them talk to the different museums and places like that. It's just something that the outreach to those museums, and the fact that they're interested in hearing from us and knowing how they could better service. And again, who knows what's going to happen once everything settles down with COVID, but that's something that I also enjoy. I'm assuming you liked doing the museum stuff as well.
Oh yeah, that's been a great thing for me. It's something that I love doing. It's something fun to do, and I love to see and to talk with the people after I do these trainings, and to hear how I've changed their mind. We've changed their mind as we do this, because we do maybe like a 4 or 5, maybe like 3 or 4 sometimes, maybe 5-hour training with them. And, then at the end, we kind of have a little brief wrap up, and we ask them, what do they think? And they really have changed their mind. So, it's something I really enjoy, and it's something that we all benefit from. I mean, Trish and Catherine, and we also work with Kevin Schott sometimes at the Penn Museum.
Right.
Through their efforts and their work is something that we can all enjoy, and kind of go to when things are open again. We can go to, and we have some tactile days. We could look at the different exhibits there and things like that.
Right.
So I think it's really neat that now more than ever, museums are wanting to reach out to the disabled community. And I am finding this not just in museums, but in a lot of other social and public events and public spaces. I've been noticing that now more than ever, there's been a social shift to kind of people wanting to include us in things. And I think that is also found in the audio description world as well. You talk to Roy Samuelson,
right,
who's done a great job with the audio description, things like that. So now that's something that's on TV all the time, and we see a lot of things that we talk about in our training. We talk about verbal description and how to describe things verbally to blind people, which is very powerful.
Right.
So it's just kind of cool that we do this, and it's something that's really good for me, because I've always been into public speaking, and it's kind of been a natural talent of mine to kind of speak publicly and do this stuff. So I do that work, and it's fun.
Right. It's funny that you mentioned the Penn Museum, because I was thinking about that the other day. 3 years ago, this past weekend was Sunday was an anniversary. I had my last surgery, which was for a detached retina. And before that, it was hairy, because I got diagnosed with the detached retina like a day or two before we were flying to London. Jane was doing her semester abroad, and we were going to pick her up, and we were going to spend a week. Liz and Jacob and I were going to spend a week in the UK. And, the doctor kind of made me feel a little funny. But one of the things we did while we were in London, we went to the British Museum, and some of the stuff they had on display was very close and very easy. And I said to Liz, can't I just reach out and touch it? And then I was thinking back of, the Penn Museum. Yeah, at the Penn Museum, they'd let me touch it. So I said, the next time we go to London, whenever that may be, I wonder if we do a little legwork before, and saying, maybe Kevin can talk to somebody there, because some of the stuff they have there is just as old or older, with what they have at the Penn Museum, which I absolutely love. And I could go there, every month and come across something that I hadn't noticed before, learned something new. And yeah, it's just something, again, like you say, it's just something fun to do. And I was really looking forward to going to, and I don't remember the gardens, the New Jersey Gardens. I think it's in Hamilton, New Jersey.
Oh, the
Remember
grounds for sculpture.
Grounds for
Yes.
Sculpture. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I was really looking forward to doing that this summer. They, after that was just, helping those guys out. It was just an outstanding event. And I was so looking forward to going there and, just walking around and, having a nice afternoon. But, of course, just like everything else, COVID changed those plans. Um, so why don't you tell us, one of the things that you do, and it's funny hearing you talk about public speaking and, the journalism in high school and stuff like that. That is something that I was interested in from an early age as well. And that was going to be that, when I went to college, that's what I was going to do. I was going for communications. I wanted to be on TV or radio. And, I was so excited to do that. And, again, plans change along the way. And now I have a podcast and it's almost the same. But how did you get started? Was that something how did you develop that, what was the thing what was the catalyst to getting you into that? I watched the news every night with my folks, and that's what got me into it. How did you, what was the catalyst for you to get involved with that? And then, and then talk about how you ended up on Blind Abilities, a huge podcast.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I will say it's kind of interesting, David, that you bring up kind of how I got into it, because it's something I don't get asked a lot, and I like to explore that because I've always been interested in the radio and being blind. That's been an outlet for me. You mentioned the sports. Well, I listen to the sports on the radio because it's so descriptive for everyone.
Right.
For everyone, they're not seeing it, so it's more descriptive. So I have always been an interested radio listener, and I actually do some stuff on the radio around the holiday season, and I'm going to be doing that possibly this year, depending on the COVID. I will go into one of the sports stations around here and do some talking and stuff like that. So I have some connections to the radio, but yeah, so I've always been interested in radio, and I always watch TV, of course, too. But it's also just kind of been, just for me, it's been, I've never been a shy person. I've never been somebody that's shy. I've always had a social spark in me, whether that was I do acting, so I do that. I do singing and playing piano. So I think kind of too, like the music and just being out in a public setting, showing myself has kind of helped me to just be outgoing, and it also kind of carries over into just my personal life. I'm the kind of guy that will go into an elevator and start talking to the guy in the elevator for the 2-minute ride that we're on there. So it's just kind of fun to do. But yeah, I've always been just outgoing and just learning things. And people really say I'm very mature for my age. And I call myself an old soul, which is true. I am an old soul. And the reason I say it is because I've always been around adults and learning from adults since my whole life, because I'm an only child.
Okay.
And
like I
always, am. Yeah, right. Yeah. so I've always been around adults and learning about things and about politics and like learning about just like a very deep thinker, a deep thinker. So yeah, that kind of translated to that. So how I got into Blind Abilities, that's a really good story too. So Blind Abilities, we actually started back. Well, I don't know when we started fully, but I came across Blind Abilities before it was a podcast. It was in 2014 was when I got into the online blind community space, and it was on this platform called Audio Boom, which is no longer around anymore. But it was kind of a community that the blind kind of registered in. And Blind Abilities was a channel that we would go on, and Jeff Thompson, who runs the podcast now, back then he had ran this channel, and it was kind of like audio form, so kind of like an email list, but in audio, we would just talk and stuff. So that platform kind of went down accessibility wise, and obviously it's no longer kind of prominent in the blind community. So around 2015 was when Jeff started doing the podcast. He got our app that we have and our podcast feeds, our website, all this stuff like that. And then Jeff and Pete kind of took the reins on that. They were running the channel, they were running the podcast. And like I said, the channel kind of dissipated. And then we just kind of launched into the podcast. And I was always a listener of the podcast. And for actually, I think maybe like a few years, maybe like a year or so, me and Jeff kind of lost touch. We was talking and stuff for a while, but we kind of lost touch for a while. And then in 2018, I noticed that the Blind Abilities was going to be at the convention that we had for National Federation of the Blind in Orlando, Florida. And I reached out to Jeff. We reconnected. And then Jeff did a few podcasts about me that summer in 2018. And then the state convention was coming around for the NFB of that year, 2018.
Okay.
And Jeff said, why don't you start doing some reporting and start doing some reporting for a state convention, get some good things. You know, you have an exhibit hall, you have a whole bunch of people do a whole bunch of stories. So I did that year. I went there, I did about 5 or 6 stories. And then ever since then, I just started doing it after the convention. I asked Jeff and I said, do you want me to keep doing this? And he was like, yeah, definitely do it full time. So from the fall of 2018, I've been just doing it full time. And I just think of different people to interview that I come across. I do a lot of inspirational stories, and I have had some interviews with Washington Seminar people from the NFB. So if people are interested in that, they can go to Blind Abilities to find that. But yeah, it's been kind of neat. I think I just kind of hit the ground running with it. And the more I thought about all these people I know, I guess I kind of thought, well, will it come to a point where I don't have people to do? But it's like, no, I always find people I can interview. I always find people to read, and it's like a never ending thing. So ever since then, I've just done it. And I love it. It's one of the things I've done for a long time. And I think for me, it's been cool because you don't know all the people you're reaching. I mean, we have our podcast gets about 25,000 downloads per month. So we're pretty big in the blindness community.
Yep.
So, I recently did a story with a guy named Party Gill.
Yes, I heard that. Yes, that was a good one.
What did you think of that?
Yeah, it was a good one. A very good one. That guy's voice was just so soothing to me, and it was so nice to listen to, and obviously the things he had to say. I really like that. In fact, I shared it on my Facebook page because I thought it was an outstanding interview. Just the two of you together, it was a really good thing. And I'm hoping that I know you had mentioned to Harriet about having him speak at one of our Keystone chapter meetings. I'm hoping he can do it. And, because this guy, I thought the guy was great.
Oh yeah. And the story I want to tell him about him is that we did the interview, and a few days later he sent me an email, and we talk on WhatsApp regularly, but he sent me and Jeff an email, and he got an email from a lady in Macedonia who had listened, and she'd heard the podcast, and she actually had COVID as well, and she wanted to connect with him. And at first I thought, wow, Macedonia, like that's amazing. And I think, wow, I'm reaching people that I don't even know. And not only that, they're taking courage from what I'm, helping to facilitate with these interviews. And then they can reach out to other people. So it's kind of neat. And it's funny because when I go to conferences for the blind, I'll be in like the exhibit hall or the elevator. I'll just be talking. And somebody will recognize me and they'll be like, do I know you? And I'll be like, do you listen to Blind Abilities? They're like, wait a minute, you're Simon from Blind Abilities? I'll be like, yeah, So it's kind of cool because I share it out to Facebook, I share it out, and I have family and friends listen. But it's neat to find out, when people just have it on their podcast feed, they listen, and you just never know who you're going to touch.
Right. And that's, and I witnessed that. I guess the first year I was at Washington Seminar a couple of years ago when you were talking to a guy, I think he was from Minnesota, and you were talking to him about it. And he's like, you said something to him and he said, yeah, you said to him, I'm on blind ability. Oh yeah, I know you. And, the guy to me seemed like he was older than me. So, he wasn't like, again, the people that you reach when you do that, it's just incredible how far and wide, and sometimes you don't even know. I got an email from someone a month or two ago about, and I thought this was funny because I haven't written a new blog entry on my on ican'tseeyou.com in quite a while, and somebody reached out to me and said, I've been reading your different blog entries, and I just want to tell you how much I really like them, and this and that and the other. I thought, okay, well, maybe I better write some more, and maybe I'm targeting the wrong audience with the podcast because, like I had mentioned earlier, I want to show the sighted community what blind folks could do. So I'm not really going after a blind audience, with the podcast, and maybe that's the wrong target. So it is interesting though what you can do when you put stuff out there. And while we're talking, so you're getting ready, you're going to graduate in June, I'm guessing, yeah?
Yes.
From high school. So what's plans for college? Have you been looking around, or
yes.
What do you?
Yes, I am. So I am going to go into communications.
Okay.
And what I kind of realized is that communications is a very versatile field. It kind of helps in a lot of different ways.
Yes.
So people kind of find this interesting, but my career that I want to go in is not necessarily communication centric, but it's kind of something that I can use as a stepping stone to get my specialized degree. So what I want to do for a career is to go in technology, and I want to work with blind people and teach them technology and, computers,
okay.
iPhones, things like that. That's what I want to do. Colleges do not have a undergraduate degree. That's sort of a certificate degree. So
okay.
I can get my degree in whatever I want to do and then kind of lead up to that. So when I was thinking about that, I thought, well, communications works with, teaching, it works with speaking, it
right.
helps with the podcast. I said, well, I could take a communications degree and I could target that, and I could, kind of go whatever I want to do with it. And the other thing I thought about is, most people, like you said, you wanted to go into broadcasting like that, but you got into a lot of businesses. Most people go to college and go to a major, and then maybe 20 years down the road, they say, well, I never thought I'd be doing the career I'm in,
right.
Too. So I have a lot of possibilities there, but yeah, I want to go into the technology field and kind of work on that. But
okay.
I think, communications is going to be good for me, learning that, and it's going to help me in the podcast. So you're going to hear me have maybe new techniques and stuff like that.
Right.
But yeah, so my communications, I applied to a few different schools. As of this time, I have got into 2 schools right now so far.
Okay.
Eastern University and Chestnut Hill College. Okay. Which are both local schools. I'm going to be doing commuting. So yeah, it's a fun time. It's a good time for me. So maybe I'll come on later when I finally get my decision.
There you go. Okay, absolutely. It's funny because, and I feel bad for you because I have to tell you, when Jacob and Jane were both looking at colleges, that was my favorite time because we were going different places and seeing schools and areas that we had never been to, and it was just so much fun that. I love that whole process. And then, then once you get in and you go to the, it's slipping my mind. Like before you go to school, they have this gathering where the kids go off and the parents go to a different area. Like, hey, how am I going to pay for this? And here's what they're going to learn here. And this is what the campus looks like. And meanwhile, the kids are doing the same thing, kind of like an orientation. and it was just so much fun doing that, and you kind of got the short end of the stick, and not just you, obviously everybody over the last spring and this spring that are graduating, because you couldn't really do that. You couldn't go visit the schools, and to me, like I said, it's, you kind of get a feel. Now, obviously, if you're looking locally, you kind of know what, Eastern is out on the main line and near Villanova and Chestnut Hill. Also a very nice school. Liz had got her Montessori certificate from Chestnut Hill back in the day, to teach. And, that's a very nice area as well. So,
Yeah, well,
good places.
Well, thank you. Well, I have gotten to see the schools. Some of them I've applied to. Some of them have been just the outside tour. Some of them have been more of an inside tour. But for me, that was really helpful to me, because I think, people that can see are using the maps. They have some maps on the website, the online stuff, which is good. But for me, I wanted to know, the general layout of, okay, where are these buildings and how far are they? Of course, I'm not going into like a, deep like session about it, but just kind of getting an idea for, how big is the campus and how many, like classrooms, how big are they? So I did get to do that. I did get to see the classrooms and see the kind of length of the buildings and stuff. So, so that was good.
Right. And I think that's very important. I know that if I'm going someplace new, I like to do a dry run. How am I going to get from the train to the, how am I going to find the entry door? I did, they had like a career fair a few years ago, and it was at a place on Market Street in between 7th and 8th. And I don't remember the exact address. And I'm like, how am I going to find this place? Because, the doors were very plain. It wasn't like there was a big sign, but fortunately there was a Subway restaurant right next door that had this, even a blind person could see it, basically, was what I was thinking, because the letters were like, like 4 or 5 feet tall, and they had an A-frame sign out front. So I figured, okay, well, I'm sure I could, if anything, at least run into the A-frame sign if I can't see the giant Subway letters on the building. And I knew I had to be to the building on the left of that. And I knew if I walked in, but then, same thing goes. Once you're in the building, there are, you could use Google Maps, if you have any kind of site, to kind of figure out what a landmark is to find it. But once you're inside, whether it's a train station or an office building or whatever, there are no maps, to help a blind person out. And I know there's all sorts of technology coming down the pike that hopefully one day will fix that. But once you're inside, then you got to start asking questions.
Yeah. I think it's kind of interesting. The technology is kind of coming along to have a, indoor system, but, they say GPS, like the last 5 feet, it's not going to work for you.
Right.
It's true. It can't really help you find an address exactly, but yeah, it's kind of coming along, that's where good cane skills and asking for help is needed.
Right. Just asking directions. And, and that just brought to mind, I remember, I think it was Carnegie Mellon University had some sort of program that they were developing something. And I know the airport in Pittsburgh was using it, and I don't remember much about it, but I thought, well, again, state convention this year was in Pittsburgh, which I know you went to, and you ended up driving, but that is not a short drive from one end of the state to the other. And I was talking to, Eugenio, right? From Graterfield.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking, he's like, if you go, how are you going to go? And I said, I don't know. He said, I'm thinking about flying. I'm like, flying? Oh my God, that seems so crazy. We're in the same state. It should be easier than that, because the train takes forever. And, and then I thought, oh, well, they have that, whatever the system is, the folks at Carnegie Mellon had developed that, one of the places they're testing it is, at the airport there. So, maybe next year, because Lynn has told me that next year's convention is also there. So hopefully we're traveling again by then, and I'll get a chance to check that out. But
Yeah, it was pretty nice that we had it in Pittsburgh, and we actually got to have a convention in person.
right.
Which I didn't know if it was going to happen, but yeah, it was a nice time, and it was kind of right on the cusp of when things were really locking down again. I mean, now at the time of this recording, we're in a pretty big lockdown period, with restaurants being only outdoor, and now that's obviously not really going on now because it's the winter.
Right.
And I know you haven't really eaten outdoors, right?
Yeah, no, I'd say, even takeaway, we really haven't done much. Obviously there are times that we've done it because, we really want something, or it's a special day, or, whatever. But or when when Jane was moving from one apartment to another in New York, we weren't going to cook something in her apartment that she was moving out of. So, we had to, get takeaway then. But yeah, I mean, we haven't really done much. And I don't know about you. I don't like being out and about because a lot of things requires me, I end up touching a lot of things, and that's the last thing you want to do now, is touching anything, whether it's a person or just stuff that other people have touched. So
yeah, that's true. I think it's for blind people, it can be hard for us to know social distancing, know
right.
what that really means, and know how to determine it, especially with the mask on. It can be kind of difficult, when somebody's speaking. It's like, well, if you're not 6 feet apart and then you notice somebody speaking, it's like, well, it's already too late. I guess you're not social distancing.
Right. And I'm always worried about being in the way and whatnot. With Liz can certainly get through a store much quicker than having to worry about me tagging along, so I've actually haven't really gone too many places. And even when I do go, a lot of times she'll run in and I'll sit in the car just to go for the ride. But it's, again, whatever it takes to get through it. As I said to Jane, I said, look, you gotta, just don't be one of those numbers. You just don't want to be, one of those statistics that, hey, you got it. And, maybe at some point, maybe we're all going to get it. And hopefully if you do, it's not bad and you get through it. But, I don't want to chance it. And, I'm okay. Most of the time, during any school year when Liz is at school teaching, I'm usually home by myself anyway. So it's really not that different for me. And, it's now that there's more people home because, Jane is been working from here, and, when, Jacob is still working at Target at the store, but, it's, every night it's a full house when all is said and done. So.
Oh yeah, that's true. I've been talking to some of my other blind friends, and I say for them, it's just the same way it is. I mean, they can't do certain things, but their day to day is like the same way. Yeah.
Right. One last thing I wanted to touch on, because this is the Christmas Eve episode. I know religion is a big thing for you, and how has it been going to church and doing things at church? Being blind, how's that worked out?
Oh, it's been great. Well, I've been really accepted at the church. I go to a non-denominational Christian church in the city called Freedom Church. And it's been a really, really good thing for me.
Okay.
And it's actually kind of interesting because people get a little confused about this, but I go to this church, but I am a Catholic, but I kind of do both. And people are like, how does that work? Well, I grew up strictly in the Catholic faith, and then I found the Freedom Church about 4 years ago, and that's kind of been my go-to thing I do in the city. And I take the public transportation down there and like that. But I'm involved somewhat in the Catholic Church. I go to Catholic school, things like that. So yeah, I kind of in both. But yeah, I've been really accepted, really enjoy it. And yeah, it's something I really do enjoy.
Okay.
And I met a lot of good people there. So yeah.
Right. And I guess some of that comes from the St. Lucy's, from an early age, being at St. Lucy's. Yes. Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's also too, my grandfather, he was very religious, and from a very young age, he really taught me. And when I say I'm a deep thinker, I was always asking questions and, figuring things out. And I've always been that kind of way. So my grandfather and me were very close, and he, we would go to church every Sunday, and that's kind of how it was, from a young age.
Okay.
And that's kind of how it was kind of growing up with my family. And that's the way it's been. I do a choir too, my school choir. So that's kind of part of it too. And I've also done a choir back before I was in high school. That was a boy choir. We used to do a lot of singing, things like that. So I've kind of enthused the music and the church and stuff like that too. So yeah.
Okay. And I saw that you were at St. Lucy's when they had their big event a week or two ago. When I guess, what is the Archbishop Perez was there, right?
Yeah,
He's Archbishop, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
it was nice. I got to meet the bishop. So.
Oh, did you really? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. That is, So I thought of you when, there's two things I think of when I see St. Lucy's, whether it's something, in an email from somebody else in the Keystone chapter, or if I see something on the news, and that was on the news. I think of you and, going there. And then I think of when Liz and I went down last year to deliver the gifts we had bought for the kids, the chapter had bought for the kids, and we got cupcakes from one of the bakeries close to us here, and took them with. There was one kid that got in trouble, and he couldn't have a cupcake, and I don't know that he ever got a gift because he was bad. he was in the principal's office, and I'm hoping he at least got the gift at some point. So I always think of that. But Simon, I really appreciate you coming on today, and I wish you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I just want to say one more thing.
Sure.
To listen before we head out. One of the things that we ask guests in Blind Abilities is we talk about some advice we'd give people, words of wisdom, kind of like that. So I would just say, for me, I would just tell people, especially right now in this COVID time, and just throughout life, just keep pushing forward, keep doing what you're doing, and keep finding your purpose. I think sometimes it can be hard to be in a mindset of finding your purpose, what you're good at, looking for ways to help others. But I think, you have to find what you're good at. We're all good at something, and just keep moving in your life. I know it's been hard with the COVID. I know it's been hard with all these things going on, but wherever you are in your life, if you're newly blinded, if you're sighted, wherever you are in your life, just take courage, take inspiration, and just keep moving forward, keep pursuing your goals, and keep being focused on what you want to do. And if you persevere and pursue your goals, you could do anything you want to do. And if you're blind, no, you can't drive, unfortunately. But so that's
they are very wise words, and I still am not sure that I believe that you're only 18, as Trish has said in the past, and I'm sure others have as well. But I really do appreciate you coming on today, and I wish you and your family a very Merry Christmas and a happy and hopefully much healthier 2021.
Well, thank you very much. I wish the same to you, David, and the same to the listeners. Have a very Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and God bless for 2021. So thank you very much, David.
Thanks, Simon. Do you see what I mean? He is destined for greatness, whether it's a leadership role higher up in the National Federation of the Blind or whatever he does. He is definitely going places. So thanks again, Simon. I really do appreciate you coming on today. And before I go, I just wanted to remind everyone about the Keystone Chapter's affiliate partnership with the White Cane Coffee Company. White Cane has some great coffee. They're a small business that, like every other small business, has had some troubles this year because it's just so difficult to do business in 2020. So I would appreciate if you are looking for some delicious coffee and you want to try out White Cane Coffee Company, if you use the Keystone Chapter affiliate link. And the easiest way to do that is by going to ican'tseeyou.com/coffee, ican'tseeyou.com/coffee. Remember, I Can't See You sounds like a whole sentence, but it is only 7 letters long. Every purchase you make using that link will give the Keystone Chapter of the National Federation of the Blind of Pennsylvania 10% commission. So that's pretty cool. So give them a try. Try the high octane. If you feel sluggish in the afternoons, this will definitely give you a kick in the butt to get you going. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode 105 of the I Can't See You podcast. I really do appreciate you joining me. Continue to stay safe. Wear your mask, wash your hands, social distance, and all that stuff that you need to do to make us all get better in a hurry. And have a very Merry Christmas. And I will talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to the I Can't See You podcast. Follow David on Twitter. He is at David Benj.